Hey, this is Khadija with For Women Like Us. Today we have Carmen, and our topic is why I waited so late to come out. And this is a topic that a lot of people, a lot of women that I was talking to wanted to know about because some of them were curious. Some of them went through the same situation and they wanted to actually know the reaction of the family and everybody else who was involved in all this. So you're 50 years old, 58 years old, and you were married, you said. So
Yes.
when did you know that your life was going to change? Let's put it like this.
I I've always known since I was probably 7 years old that I was gay. And growing up in a strict religious home and being with the Latin culture or whatever, you don't do a whole lot of things. You don't go against the church, being brought up Catholic and all that. So it was kind of hidden for the longest time. And I would always, I guess I came out super late in life. I didn't come out during high school or anything because you always got judged. I felt I got judged just for my nationality alone and my being overweight and everything else. So I already had what I thought back then, a couple strikes against me. So I led a very low key life, kept to myself. And it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I came out after I had divorced my husband after being married a little over 4 years and having 2 kids. And I figured I can't live this double life anymore. It's exhausting, mentally exhausting.
Mm-hmm. So how did your ex-husband felt about it? I mean, you were divorced already, but did he had an incline? Did he knew something was going on?
No, he had no inclination what was going on. He said he was okay with it, but I could tell. I mean, there was a lot of tension between us to begin with the divorce and everything else. So the comments he kind of kept to himself. He never said anything to me because of the kids or whatever. So he just kind of chuckled and went on his way, and that was it. We never really sat and discussed it.
And what about your children? I know you said that they are adults today, but back then they were smaller, and I know they probably had to go through all this of the divorce and everything else.
Yeah, the kids went through the divorce and everything, and I think that was one of the main reasons why I didn't come out then, because I didn't want to have them have to deal with the backlash with their friends at school and that life by them being teased at school or whatever, because kids can be cruel.
Yeah,
with each other, unfortunately. So when I came out, my daughter was 19 and my son was 17, between 16 and 17 and stuff. So my daughter was my biggest fan and still is to this day, so, and my son as well. They both says, Mom, we just want you to be happy. We don't care who it's with, and we will support you no matter what. So, that was the best part. I mean, I worried about telling them because I wanted them to accept it, but I just told them that I couldn't live the double life anymore. I had to be true to myself and be who I really wanted to be. After 40 some years, I just couldn't live that fake life anymore. So.
What about your family? I mean, your parents were alive then or no?
My father was not alive when I came out. My mother was. And when I told my mom, she kind of made excuses. She was like, oh, because she kept before I actually came out, I was engaged to another man for probably 7 years and we lived together. And my mom really liked him. She really liked him. But I kept thinking it was the only way I could kind of live the life I wanted to live by hiding behind what society accepted, if you know what I mean. So
yes,
it was all in disguise, whatever. I mean, I didn't do anything when I was engaged to him or whatever, but when I finally ended that relationship and when I told her, I said, that was never real, whatever. And I explained to her what was going on, and she says, oh, that's just a phase. And she was insisted it was just a phase. And I told her, I said, Mom, it's never been a phase. I've known since I was a kid. I've known since I was in the 7th grade. You just know, I said, I could just tell how I reacted with everybody. She says, well, give it a chance. And she did not want to accept it, and I think one weekend she had a discussion with my sister, and she must have really voiced her opinion, because to this day I still don't know what was said, and apparently it wasn't very good, because my sister says, you don't need to know what Mom said, were her exact words. So I was like, okay, I guess if nobody wants to tell me, then I'm okay with it. I don't regret coming out when I did, so.
What is your relationship with the church after coming out, even before that? Because like you said, the religion, people, the stigma that was then.
Yes. Yeah, as I knew when I was going to be living this other life or whatever, I saw myself kind of removing myself from the church little by little each year. So I started becoming, pretty before my mother passed away, I was not practicing the religion. I was not going to church anymore. I was not being a part of, affiliated with it or anything. So I chose to remove from it because of the stigma attached to it, so that was my choice, whether they would have accepted me or not. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough to find that out,
But what about today? I mean, year 2022, and the church is a little bit more accepting.
I do believe that there is a higher power, but not necessarily where it's regimented with the church per se. I mean, I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe between the vibrations and spirit or whatever, that's what I believe in. And I don't call it per se a God of some sort, because I look at it this way. If there was truly a God, then a lot of us wouldn't be experiencing the things that we're experiencing. That's just my belief. A lot of people don't believe that, but I don't practice any religion in particular.
I know coming out is difficult as a teenager, and I could imagine how it was being 40 plus and saying, hey, here I am a lesbian. Your friends, female friends especially,
Yes.
How they reacted to that?
They, a lot of them said they were okay with it, but I'm a firm believer that actions speak louder than words. So, sure, they could talk to you or whatever, but I noticed that with a lot of my straight friends, it was becoming more and more of a distance. We didn't communicate as much anymore. They kind of, I always had this feeling I was being watched when we would go to holiday functions through work or whatever. I was being watched or whatever. There was just a totally different vibe, and it just, they don't come out and say that they're against it or whatever. They just don't want to talk about it, and even when my sister had mentioned, because my daughter also is gay, and she came out when she was 19. So when she had told my sister, I think my sister and some of my family still had an issue with it, because she says, well, I don't care who you're with. I just don't want to see any interaction. I don't want to see any affection going on, any of that, any PDA, whatever. So as long as you keep that away from everybody, then we're good.
And how was that for you? I mean,
it was difficult to come out to my family. I mean, sometimes I can be my own worst critic. If I'm feeling uncomfortable around a setting and stuff, then I automatically assume that it's because of what's going on around me. But when I told them, that I had come out or whatever, and they were like, oh, okay. But then it was never talked about again. And of course, communication was never big in our family either, with the culture I grew up in. There's very little communication, very little affection, whatever. So it does become difficult to try to date and do things, especially even living in a strict environment. I kind of think I grew up in a very secluded, we were different from everybody else, didn't have any friends over, didn't go visit friends or whatever. So to be able to put myself in a dating aspect and then getting on these websites and actually meeting people and stuff, that was a challenge in itself. It really was a challenge in itself.
Okay, you said your daughter came out at 19. How you took that? When she said, okay, Mom, hello, here I am. So yes. How was your feeling? What was you expecting something like this? That you had an incline when it came to her?
I did have an inclination when she was growing up that she was, because she always had this one best friend that would come over, and I'm not kidding. They always slept in the same room, whatever, sleepovers all the time. And then there was one time that I don't know what it was. I think one of them was sick. And I decided to separate them. I said, okay, you're sick or whatever, then you stay over here separate, whatever. And my daughter was very upset, angry to the point. Why? She could sleep in the same space, but I mean, it was the whole anger issue that she had about being separated, from her friend at that point in time. And it was a few days after that where she finally came out and said, hey, I'm gay, I've been gay, all this time. So I had a feeling, it didn't surprise me. But then again, when I came out and talked to her, she always said, Mom, I had the feeling. I was just waiting for you to say something. So you kind of have that feeling.
Yeah, the same thing, huh? The same vibe as, I'm just waiting for you to tell me something. Yes.
Right. The family, if you're close or whatever, then you always know what the other person's going to say or what they think. Just watch their mannerisms and you can kind of figure it out, So
something that you mentioned about your straight female friends, are they still acting the same way, or you stay away from that circle because you know how they treat you and how they behave around you?
I kept in touch with a lot of my straight friends, and a lot of them were because we worked at the same place. And it's been probably over a year that I haven't worked at the same place. So I kept in contact with a lot of them. But that was because I was making the effort to keep in contact. And I have noticed, unfortunately, that a lot of them don't keep in contact with me. So I think I'm guessing it's just easier, to not, they'll ask, hey, how you doing? When I would visit them. And then the topic would end. It would always be something that they're going through or what they're doing or whatever. So it was like, okay, not one of them would ask, are you seeing anyone? Are you dating anyone? And I would kind of expected that, There is one friend of mine that did ask, and she does ask periodically and stuff, but I don't speak to her that often either. But she was the only one that would ask, are you seeing anyone? How's it going? So
that sounds more in the nosy part, like, I want to know what's going on so I can go and tell everybody else.
I kind of thought the same thing too, But I'm like, okay, I'll answer what's asked. And there's a lot of times, I have friends that'll ask me a question and they feel as though they're pulling teeth because I don't reveal a whole lot. They have to ask the specific question, then I will answer. My best friend said the same thing. She says, I have to ask you a specific question or you won't tell me anything,
Exactly. So. I mean, it's like pulling teeth to a person that has no teeth. Okay, try to do that.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, and as a matter of fact, I did, I met my best friend through a dating website, and we never dated, but we just became the best of friends because we kind of both came out at the same time. She's got kids, I had kids, so we had a lot in common. So we both experienced the coming out, in
a later time in life. Yes.
Yeah. And it was a little bit easier to have that camaraderie and that, that buddy, to be able to bounce and talk to, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way. So that kind of helped with the coming out process.
Today,
Yes.
Have you made? Do you think that the choices that you have made had changed your life for the better, or has changed your life a little bit different what you were expecting it to be when you came out?
Um, there are some times that I wish I came out earlier in life. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't regret the steps that I took to get to that point because my kids, came first, and I figured, I would do my thing when the kids weren't around, and that was the whole process I took. I think it would have been easier for me today if I came out earlier and experienced a little bit more. But it's like when you're older and you're trying to experience everything, you're kind of set in certain ways of doing things and what you expect. And then it's like you want to see the whole world at the same time, but there just isn't enough time in the day to do everything you want to do, because it's just like, they use the old phrase, sowing your wild oats. Well, it's not about sowing your wild oats. It's about actually, being in your own space and being who you are, and not having to worry about, being a fake person or being somebody that you're actually not, So I think it did help me a little bit, coming out later in life, because I kind of was a little more shielded per se, as far as what to expect in the process.
Wow. Because I had other women that I had spoken to, and a lot of them came with a positive vibe. The family really didn't bother. They were like, oh, okay, fine. The church was like, at one point was like, oh, we're gonna beat the devil out of you. It was a situation where she goes to church and she's out. I don't understand. I'm gonna be honest. How can you be in a place where they treat you like you're nobody? And when you mentioned that you separated yourself completely from religion, and seeing and listening to this other woman saying, so I still go to church, I'm here. I said, but you came out and they treat you like this and they talk to you like this. She told me that she goes now to a place where they're more accepting of her being a lesbian. And she was like, but before it was very difficult. People from church, from the Catholic Church that growing up or as an adult, how they feel about it, how they look at you.
A lot of them feel as though that's totally against all the beliefs of the church. They definitely dead set against it. That you don't do that. You don't sleep with someone of the same sex. You just don't do that. That's not what's in the Bible and stuff. But sometimes I would question it and say, well, we only know the Bible by what we were taught. We don't know actually if this could have actually occurred back in the day, per se. But it's not written that it actually occurred. But yeah, it is definite where there is a lot of shunning involved. There is a lot of,
you don't
whispers.
Belong here.
Yeah, it's one of them things. You're not one of us, kind of a thing. So, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, there's always going to be that one person that looks at you a certain way because of the way you look. And you do get treated a little bit different because of the way you look and because of the way you dress. And I dress in simple, T-shirts and cargo shorts or whatever, but and the real short hair. So it's obvious what they call a soft butch, whatever. But when you go to some of these places and establishments, even aside from the church, you do get treated different. They may not say it, but their actions speak loud and clear. And that's the part that kind of bothers me. But I haven't spoken up enough. It kind of intimidates me to a point, which is it's sad to say, but it does intimidate me to a point to where I just kind of step back, don't say anything, and then I kind of make myself smaller.
Wish you could say something at that point. And
Yes.
then you walk away. You're like, I wish I did say this and this and
Yes.
that. But then at the same time, like you say, you just trying to avoid. I guess it's avoid more of a confrontation, and that's what I see the most is, you have to walk away and let people say whatever and do whatever they want. And I don't think that should be. It should be that way. I think you
No.
have a voice, you have an opinion, and it will be like, I'd rather you tell me what's going on than to me feel insignificant because you are this way. And people say, you're in your feelings and, you shouldn't feel that way. You know what? The feelings are valid because they're my feelings. So if you don't like
Right.
it, it's okay. But I'm still going to be in my feelings. So have you
Right.
ever had any confrontation with somebody? I mean, we're talking about it and you usually shy away from it. But have you ever confronted somebody about the situation? Why are you acting like this towards me?
Um, I did have one situation, and it was a place of business that I was treated different. I had walked in to drop off my vehicle, and I got looked over 3 times. There's 3 other customers that came in behind me, and they got served before I did. Of course, I didn't say anything to the guy that was in front of me at the counter. I was just frustrated. I says, well, this and that. I left. I called a friend and I vented. Well, that person vented to their person with this establishment. And that's what got the ball rolling. So when I actually went and talked to the establishment after they got done fixing my car, they were apologizing and stuff. I said, look, I don't understand why I got treated like this. I said, first of all, because of the way I looked, and for me being a woman of color, and gay on top of it, it's just not fair. Well, I'm sure that wasn't the intent. I said, no, you could see it. Conversations didn't stop. People walked after me. They got served before I did. And the only reason why somebody is saying anything now is because it was brought to somebody's attention. I said, heck, the manager of the department hasn't even come to speak to me yet. He looked right at me, but he hasn't approached me. So I said, what does that tell you? So it is very difficult to be in those kind of settings,
One last question before we go, because I know you have to go back to driving. And will you do it all over again? The same way?
Yes, I would, because I've learned a lot from this process, and coming out the way I did, and being a part of like I had mentioned, we do that women's group, that 1 week in the summer where it's all women, and most of the women are gay that are out there from the entertainment, the vendors, and it's called Michigan Family Reunion, and we meet every year, but it's not just for gay women. It's for straight women, anybody, just women in general, girls, that we can all empower each other, and that right there, between me coming out when I did and me being part of this community, and that Michigan Family Reunion, that has really kind of helped me feel more at home with who I am and be myself.
Actually, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I don't regret that the other person didn't come to the podcast last time. I am happy that I was able to speak with you because...
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You have been so honest and answer all the questions without hesitation. And that's one thing. And I want my audience to know that this is a podcast where we're going to have conversations like this all the time. And I want women over 40 to feel empowered by the words that Carmen has said, because a lot of women are still scared and afraid of doing things. Not only stepping out and coming out, no, they are afraid of doing more than this. They are afraid because they're over 40 that they're not going to be able to do something and be successful at it. You see, Carmen made a conscious decision to wait and to do what she did. Okay, she came out after 40, fine. Other women don't have the choice because domestic violence. They don't have the money to say, I'm walking out of this marriage, and they have kids. And like Carmen said, she waited until her kids were a little bit older in order to make this decision. So who are we to tell them that they cannot make this decision? Who are we to push them away and say, you don't belong here? Who are we to say, because I'm Muslim, you're Catholic, or you're Christian, you are not my sister. You are not a woman just like me.
Right.
And like the other one. So we have to come together and learn that it's not about, our differences. It's about sisterhood. And that's what for women like us it's about. It's about the sisterhood. It's about empowering each other, telling our stories, and being true to yourself. Because when you're true to yourself, you get to live a little bit longer with less high blood pressure and heart attack and your hair falling out and all kinds of other stuff. So this is Khadija with Carmen today, and I am your host for Women Like Us. Thank you and enjoy. Don't leave, Carmen.
Recording stopped.